The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Malami, on Wednesday in Abuja said his office will still comply with a court order that should expunge Section 84, subsection 12 from the Electoral Act. This is just as the Senate and the House of Representatives separately condemned the court order and vowed to take immediate action on it. Recall that the Federal High Court in Umuahia had last Friday declared illegal Section 84, subsection 12 of the Act, which stipulates that all political appointees must resign before taking part in primaries. Addressing journalists after the virtual Federal Executive Council meeting, Malami said he will give effect to the judgment soon, adding that the machinery had been set in motion for that purpose. He noted that the possibility of an appeal was also there, adding that the deletion of Section 84, subsection 12, quote, is a work in progress and is being considered as such, end of quote. But the National Assembly has resolved to appeal the judgment. The Senate and the House of Representatives separately reached a resolution at their plenary on Wednesday. The House resolved to report Justice Dike to the National Judicial Council for empowering Malami to delete the section from the Act. A lot to unpack this morning, but a lot of people are wondering, why is Malami so eager to do this?
Why, indeed, especially as the Constitution is crystal clear in Section 174. It is not his role to expunge anything from an enactment of the National Assembly. And I'm sorry, I find the suggestion scandalous, to be honest with you. This has been a controversial ruling, and rightly so. You cannot take Tipex to an enactment of the National Assembly. There is a procedure, there is a process, and the Senate has showed us they did begin the process, and it was voted down. We all heard the resounding cry of nay, and that was that. It must be introduced in the Houses of Assembly. There must be a first reading, second reading, third reading, public hearing, what have you. There is a procedure, and then it now goes for presidential assent. You do not just delete, you do not expunge. When the Senate did not play ball, the Attorney General, which is one of his roles, actually, he went to court. Well, he didn't go to court, actually, he was a defendant. He was a defendant who was taken to court. And this ruling has been found in his favor, which is the way a lot of people see it, since he's taken it quite personally. The general subtext that's been assumed here is that he has his own political ambition and is hesitant to resign prematurely, because what the Constitution says, it gives them 30 days beforehand, so he doesn't want this. So he definitely has a dog in this fight. However, the manner that it's been approached is really, again, a scandal. We have separation of powers. The National Assembly remains the only authorized body to enact laws, amend laws in this country. The Attorney General has wide powers, including instituting proceedings, discontinuing proceedings, taking over proceedings. He does not have the power to delete anything in an act of the National Assembly.
Dr. Bulletin?
Okay. Now, what is the background to this? Nigerians have been asking since 1999, since 2010, for a review of the electoral framework. And one of the promises made by this National Assembly, the Night Assembly, was that the Electoral Act will be amended. And we went through the whole of that process with the president giving his assent. But the controversial part was Section 84, subsection 12 of that Electoral Act, which requires, political appointees, to resign their positions ahead of the primaries, so that, there will be balance, so that there will be equity, so that there will be fairness. What the National Assembly tried to do was to cure a particular mischief, which gives undue advantage to persons who are occupying political positions and who use the privilege of that position to take advantage over other delegates or other persons, and also the governors using their political appointees to gain an undue advantage. Now, the president was persuaded to sign the electoral bill then into law, despite that Section 84:12. Now, after he did that, the president again raised objection to Section 84, subsection 12 of that Electoral Act as it then was. Now, questions were raised about the procedure. The National Assembly will not act on the basis of a letter. If the executive arm wanted to apply for an amendment, request an amendment, it will send a fresh bill in that regard. So that's point number one. And it was said at the time that the Attorney General of the Federation had failed to advise the president appropriately. It now happened that a gentleman who is a member of Action Alliance, who is not a political appointee, who has no dog in the fight in the real sense. There was the issue of his locus. He went to a court in Umuahia, Federal High Court, Umuahia, where he asked the court to seek whether the Section 84, subsection 12, is inconsistent with the provisions of Section 66, 1F, Section 107, 1F, Section 102, 1F, Section 137, 1F of the 1999 Constitution. And then he sued the Attorney General of the Federation as defendant. Okay, what did the Attorney General of the Federation do? The Attorney General said, in fact, he concurred, he had no case to present. He aligned with that plaintiff. And on the basis of that, the court, the Federal High Court in Umuahia, the Court of Justice Anyandike, now directed that the Attorney General of the Federation should delete Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act. Now, many commentators on this have said this is a case of a black market process. Yes. Because, one, certain things have been violated. Forum shopping, venue shopping. Mm-hmm. The defendants are in Abuja. Why go to Umuahia to go and present a case? Why will a man who has no locus in the matter, who cannot prove that he will suffer any damage, he not being a public servant in this particular case or a political appointee? So there was also the issue of locus. 3, the definition of who is a civil servant or a public servant is well articulated under Section 318 of the 1999 Constitution, to which there was no reference. Now the Attorney General, in comes the Attorney General, saying he has an obligation to carry out the directive of the court, of the Federal High Court in Umuahia. The Land Reform Commission is under the office of the Attorney General. The people will gazette the law, if it comes to that, they are under the Attorney General of the Federation. But the question is, why is the Attorney General of the Federation trying to act hastily when it is clear that Section 84, subsection 12, despite the ruling of the court in Umuahia, is not yet a settled matter. It's contentious. Mm-hmm. And yesterday, the National Assembly, debated this matter, and both houses took the decision that this is a matter that they will appeal. In the Senate, Senator George Sekibo presented a motion for the Senate to appeal that particular ruling by the Court of Justice Anyandike. In the House of Reps, the same decision was taken, and with both houses agreeing that they will report Justice Anyandike to the National Judicial Council because they see the ruling, one, as a violation of their privilege, of their rights under the Constitution as a lawmaking body, which is guaranteed under Section 4 of the Constitution. Okay? 2, they also query the logic behind it under the doctrine of the separation of powers. And they think that the executive has not followed due process and that this will amount to the usurpation of the functions of the National Assembly. In fact, the Speaker, Femi Gbajabiamila, even said, look, the executive cannot even change a comma. The judiciary cannot even change a comma in any piece of legislation, something as small as a comma. Mm. If you have an issue, you take the matter back to the same National Assembly that has power. So where does the Attorney General of the Federation derive his powers from? Mm. Well, if he goes ahead on a matter that is going on appeal, and he says he has deleted it, then he will have acted hastily. Finally, the National Convention of the All Progressive Congress, scheduled for Saturday, may be jeopardized, may be invalidated, if at the end of the day the matter is resolved in favor of the legislature. The advice to the caretaker committee of the APC is that they should be careful, so as not to allow political appointees, contrary to the law as it is for now, to participate in that process.
And there are a lot of them already. There are booby traps waiting because there are so many political appointees that have become consensus candidates to take position in the APC convention. I mean, we talked about some of them yesterday, Tunde, if you remember. Real quickly, I think in passing, I just want to ask, why is it that the Attorney General doesn't have the same effervescence and muscle in implementing judgments as regards governors that were found wanting in defection? We'll have, what about other judgments on ground in this country against the federal government that you thought the Attorney General was going to enforce with that same vigor? But what do we see? It's what concerns me, I will do. And that's the case of Nigeria. We can't build a country this way. We keep cherry picking what suits us. A country doesn't grow. A country grows on ethos. That's all on News Headline. We'll take a short break.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Our dependable Rotus Adiri is here to give us an African business update. Morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Tundu. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Doctor. Yeah, we begin with oil and gas, the continued conversations around oil theft that have been plaguing Nigeria. President Buhari has he's deployed the big guns. Minister of State Timipre Silva has been deployed to the Niger Delta, along with CEO of NNPC Limited, that is, of course, Mele Kyari, and General Lucky Irabo, who is the Chief of Defense Staff. They've all been deployed to the Niger Delta in order to address this issue of oil theft. Timipre Silva says that the perpetrators will be brought to justice. Quote, your days are numbered. He says that ghosts are not carrying out oil theft and that they exist in the local communities and that the communities have to step up. So, of course, we've been talking about this extensively for quite a while. Austin Avuru, MD of Seplat Energy, mentioned the issue of oil theft, saying that a state of emergency needs to be declared. The chair of Ayers Holdings, Tony Elumelu, also, lamenting that on Twitter. So, they say in the next few days something is going to happen. Now, there's a tweet that's been floating around the interwebs for quite a while. I'm not sure how many remember this. This is from February the 28th of 2015 from then Vice Presidential candidate Osibanjo, saying 400,000 barrels of oil stolen daily in Nigeria. No serious government can allow this to continue. And then in upper caps, we will not let it continue. Hashtag change. Yeah, this tweet hasn't aged well. It has not aged well because, years later, here we are. So that's something that's still being addressed. We move to Ghana. So oil theft continues to be an issue. Ghana has put some points there on your screen on how to address the hashtag is building Ghana together. The Ghanaian economy has been facing some dire straits. Number one at the top, that's of course Akufo-Addo, the president. A cabinet agrees a border reopening within 2 weeks. They shut the borders because of COVID. Government cuts salaries of appointees by up to 30%. That's, of course, to reduce pressure on the budget and their fiscal structure. The policy rate increased substantially to 17%. Cost of loans to go. I don't know how that's supposed to help things, but I mean, if you're trying to bring in inflows, capital inflows, the flip side is that you're making things more expensive on the loan side for businesses and individuals. And then government to pump $2 billion to rescue the cedi. The cedi is one of the worst performing currencies, I think second only to the Russian ruble, in the manner in which it has depreciated. We're playing a football match. Is it tomorrow or is it Saturday? The World Cup qualifier. Nigeria and Ghana are not only competing in jollof rice and football, they're now competing in inflation. Ghanaian inflation is now at 15.5 or 15.7%, which is incredible when you consider that late last year where it was in single digits. So Ghana imports a substantial amount of wheat from Russia. They import a substantial amount of iron ore from Ukraine. The Ghanaian, I think it's 2026 bonds are now at 16.6%. So there's an inverse relationship between the price and yield of a bond. If people start selling your bond, the yield goes up. So that's getting more expensive for them. It's really bad. I mean, we had the Ghanaian Ministry of Finance coming out to challenge Fitch and Moody's, talking about the experience of the analysts who had downgraded them. The e-levy still has not passed. That is what they are basing their hopes on, that e-levy is going to pass to allow to bring in more revenue. But Parliament is split. So I think at 1 p.m. Ghanaian time, which is 2 p.m. West African time, Ken Ofori-Atta, who is the finance minister, he's supposed to be addressing the nation with some of how these measures, but Ghana's in trouble. There's some serious fiscal issues going on over there. We move to Egypt. Look, the war is just causing trouble everywhere. Egypt is now looking for more money from the IMF. This is a statement that's been put out by Celine Arad, who is the mission chief of the IMF to Egypt. They let the currency depreciate, I think, about 14%. So the Egyptian pound is also depreciating as well. The central bank allowed it to, they also raised rates. So I should repeat, Ghana raised rates because of inflation. Egypt called an emergency meeting to also raise their interest rates, I think, to 9.25%. Inflation in Egypt is, I think, 8.8%. It's also risen to multi-year highs. So they're looking for more money from the IMF. The IMF did commend them for allowing the currency to move. They've commended some of the other fiscal measures that they've taken, but in the next few days, there's supposed to be some assistance coming from the IMF. The IMF also, I think, gave $750 million to Kenya recently. So this, between Egypt and Ghana, in Ghana, again, I even forgot to mention, bread is going up. There's a taxi union that says that they're going to suspend services because fuel is going up. Same thing is happening over in Egypt. So this fuel, the increase in fuel is just causing so much fiscal pressure for a lot of emerging markets. It's spread everywhere. There's we should have a graphic from the Observatory of Economic Complexity or something, OEC, that shows wheat imports. You should see Egypt there, your bottom right. This is as of 2019. Egypt on the African continent is the largest importer of wheat from Russia. As of 2019, it was Russia, United States, Canada were top three. Egypt was the top importer. You can see Nigeria there, Algeria and other countries, but they are the top ones. So they're also being adversely affected as well. So in the next few days, we're going to get an update from them. Finally, South Africa. This is Lesotho Katanja, who is the Reserve Bank of South Africa governor. They will be making a monetary policy decision today. It's expected that South Africa will also raise interest rates. But with what you've seen, and that's because of inflation too, because of rising prices, because of fuel. So from Ghana to Egypt to South Africa to everyone, rates are just going up. We're seeing monetary policy tightening.
I mean, the problem is Ghana is obviously multi-pronged. Really? Ghana used to go from single-digit interest rate. What's it called? Double-digit interest rate. About they're 12 or 13% thereabout. Now it's gone up to 17%. Why? Because inflation is hitting them real hard. And I think that's the wave of stagflation all over Africa, because when you look at it, they're not creating a lot of new jobs, and at the same time, inflation is going up. The same case in Nigeria, the same case in Egypt and all of that. So there's going to be this global squeeze. What will be the remedy? The remedy is this countries must look inward. Ghana must look inward in terms of revenue collection. It's not done a good job as regards revenue collection. There's also be cases of corruption. There's also be cases of resource theft. There's been an increase. So in Nigeria, we call it crude oil theft here. In Ghana, it's called galamsey. The galamsey, they go steal gold in the mines and things like that and other places like that. And nothing can be you can't effectively account for that. Yeah. So there's resource theft and the like. And that's why those countries must look inward. The problem with Ghana is the fact that cost of petrol will go up definitely. One, because they don't produce petrol.
And
two,
it's deregulated.
It's deregulated. Yeah. Three, there are many parameters as regards, so they don't hold the fate in their hands. Most importantly, what they should be doing is, number one, looking inward. Number two, fiscal discipline, which Ghana doesn't have. And that's when Akufo-Addo is saying, I'm going to cut 30% government worker salaries. I'm like, Akufo-Addo, this is medicine after death. Right. They didn't have effective fiscal discipline in Ghana. And because when Ghana borrows, another part you didn't put in the benchmark is the fact that debt to GDP ratio
80%
is 80%.
Yeah.
So when they borrow money from IMF and the likes, what do they use the money to do?
That's why their bond yields are going up.
Let me use the wadu-wadu word again. They eat it up wadu-wadu. Yeah. Once again, they eat it up like Kobayashi. I'm sorry, but that's what they're doing. So it still goes back to that fiscal discipline. The same thing with Egypt and Al-Sisi. So we should look inward. We can solve this problem, but it will continue. The Fed is tightening their belt. Increasing interest rate at the same time, most of the foreign loans we'll have is going to be harder. IMF will be excited that you're deregulating your currency because that's what they always wanted. But the question is that the way forward? While America is defending its own dollars, Africa should think. We don't think enough.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm a bit baffled, Rotus.
Yeah.
There's that tweet that you shared from the Vice President, which
Vice President Sibanjo,
yes, which is horrendous looking back now. But the President has sent that team, and the Minister of State is, talking tough, identifying the elements, and
something's gonna happen.
Yes. Days are numbered.
Yes.
What took so long?
Tundu, that's the tough question as to what took so long. I guess they just didn't take it as seriously as they should have. Oil theft has been with us for, I mean, that tweet, that was 2015. It goes back decades. So,
even recently, like press reports really reached critical mass back in January. We're now at the end of March, and that's when we're sending a high-powered team to identify the elements. The community, the law enforcement, and blah-de-da, the oil companies.
There. Big guns.
So let me start with the Vice President's tweet, which was February 2015.
Yes.
Now, the big takeaway there is the point about politicians making promises, raising expectations, and the gap between campaign promise and delivery. Exactly. And it's not only in this area of oil theft that the APC and its major figures at the time made this kind of promise. They did so with regard to electricity, which another serving minister at the time said will be sorted out in 6 months. There were other promises. Some of them, even their main principal has had to say to disclose that he never said so, that was somebody else's idea. But this is about the political process. But better late than never that an effort is now being made. Earlier in the week, the Upstream Regulatory Authority, led by Mr. Komolafe, disclosed that that body is now going to do an audit, reservoir audit, output audit, and that there will be a thorough investigation of some of the claims that have been made. Tony Elumelu saying 95% of output lost to theft. Avuru saying 85%. The CBN governor has also had cause to raise alarm about the accretion, the losses in terms of foreign reserve and the effect, the pressure that oil theft puts on the economy. So it's better late than never that this will be addressed. Now, the second point, you talked about interest rate going up in Egypt. In Ghana, interest rate has been increased to 17%. The South Africans are going this week to increase their own interest rate
today it's expected
also because inflation is going up. But, you were not around when the second monetary policy committee meeting of the Central Bank of Nigeria held. Now, what is it that is unique about Nigeria? While other, central banks across the world are taking a hawkish stance, Nigeria just is keeping on to an accommodative stance, right? MPR remains at 11.5%, CRR at 17.5%, liquidity ratio at 30%. 30%. So what is it that the Monetary Policy Committee knows that is different from what is happening in other central banks all over the world? I was keeping that question for you.
Yeah, well, the Monetary Policy Committee says that they use GDP growth, for instance, right? Saying that 3.4% for full year 2021. Nigeria is recovering and coming out of the doldrums of COVID-19. They also said that, well, inflation is high, which is what is alarming Ghana, alarming Egypt, alarming South Africa. But Nigeria did have an 8-month deceleration from, I think, about March of 18.1% or so till about November, when it fell to the 15 levels. So they're saying the climb that we saw in December was seasonal effects, and then what we saw in January, they're saying that essentially inflation is net on average on a decelerating, and we should allow that to continue, which is why they don't want to hike the rates, because it makes borrowing more expensive and will squeeze the economy.
One about the Naira being devalued in 2022, and that we also stand the risk of recession. I hope, another recession. That would be terrible.
That would be horrible
in a political season. So I hope our policymakers are also thinking in this regard.
Indeed.
And I think another thing too about the CBN is that we've been hovering about a high inflation rate for a while.
Exactly.
For Ghana, it was a marginal jump from about 9% to about 15% that it is. But we've been 16, 15, 16, 15, 16, 15. And even when you dial back to 2015, just after the election of 2016, we were at 18% inflation rate. So we have not really reverted back to the Sanusi days of 9% inflation rate. So in the last 8 years, we've hovered around 18 to benchmark maybe 14, 15%.
Which are structural issues.
Anyway.
But it could get worse.
It could.
That's the concern. With the Naira, misbehaving.
Fuel, doctor. The fuel issue, that fuel issue is really bad.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on now to more business updates. Michael Wilson joins us from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning. As you'd imagine, the Asia-Pacific stocks have been struggling with the big move overnight, which is certainly in the oil price, but I'll come on to that. Asia-Pacific's market, they were really struggling for direction, basically. Very torrid session on Wall Street yesterday. Shares in Singapore, though, outperformed. It looks as though the government there is restricting some of the COVID restrictions, or lifting them, actually. And shares of travel-related stocks in Singapore, like airlines and the rest of it, were up today. Hong Kong's Hang Seng doing quite well. And look at these Hong Kong listed tech companies, China tech companies in Hong Kong. There is a real feeling now that China rather may be easing its restrictions. Again, it's just stories which are circulating, but it's certain that there's this move amongst investors now to be looking big time about China rather than just waiting to see what's going to happen. As far as Wall Street's concerned, stock futures little changed on Wednesday. Dow Jones up a little. These are futures because yesterday there was a really torrid trading session yesterday on Wall Street, down about 450 points, because we're turning to Russia now. That pipeline repair scheme, which I told you about from the Caspian Sea, from Kazakhstan into Russia, has now been halted completely. Russia asking for payment in rubles for its gas and oil exports. That is going to throw a huge amount of confusion around at the moment. Commodity brokers are scratching their heads this morning to find out if they can in fact pay for these exports in rubles. And a lot of people with long-term big contracts with Russia are actually looking at the contracts drawn up, because normally people would pay for this in dollars and euros rather than rubles. Obviously, this is an attempt by the Russian government, A, lot of confusion thrown about, B, to try to restore some kind of value to the ruble, which I'm sure I don't need to remind you has lost 85% of its value since the war started. So that's what's really going on there, but that's caused an enormous flutter around energy and gas prices this morning. The EU has been loosening its state aid requirements. It's now opening a fund for companies which say they've been hit by what's happening because of the Ukraine-Russian war. They're in line to get 400,000 euros to help them, plus 30% of their energy costs as well. Whether that will get paid for, not quite sure about that, but no doubt we'll be hearing more about that. But that's their feeling at the moment. As far as the UK is concerned, as I said yesterday, before he actually spoke, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, did not give an enormous amount of help. I mean, there were some headlines about fuel duty being cut and national insurance thresholds increased and income tax cuts before the next election. But the bottom line is, as with most countries now, what politicians are doing is saving the good news for just before the election. And because we're entering now very dark economic times, there's no question about this, and the UK is not alone in that. And the Office for Budget Responsibility, which is now where people get their sort of national forecast from, has cut growth in this country quite dramatically, soaring energy costs and all the rest of it. The UK Prime Minister has said that it is, and this is very much in inverted commas, it looks like P&O broke the law with their mass sackings of all those people over last weekend. There are technicalities about this, whether warnings were given and all the rest of it. This needs to be, this is going straight to lawyers right now. But the Prime Minister actually was forced to say that it looked like there was some possibility for attacking this on legal grounds. As I said, oil and gas, that ruble trouble really just spooked the markets yesterday, as did the ceasing of exports through that particular pipeline. And gold basically has just been moving sideways. I have it at about $9.50 an ounce. It's sort of gaining on the fact that dollar yields are down very, very slightly, but all week it's just been moving sideways. That's the global view.
Michael, I'm talking about the spring statement this morning, trouble ahead for Britain. I mean, what he said as regards rebates on petrol price is almost giving people nothing. So if you buy 60 litres of fuel at the rate of £1.70 or 78, that will cost you about £103 per 60 litres to fill your tank. Then the government takes out 5 pence per litre, and that comes out to just £3. So you still pay £99. It doesn't solve any problem. and the cost of living is going up. So what is happening in the UK, and will the island surmount all of its challenges now?
What I said about it was, and I would stick by this, again, I'm only a commentator. I have no political views one way or the other. But what I can tell you is that, yes, we're entering a dark economic age, as are most countries in the West. Every country will be feeling this now. Energy costs are not going down, as I understand it, anywhere. And there is a limited amount that politicians can actually throw at this, bearing in mind that they are all part of the political cycle, and they put themselves up for re-election at a certain kind of time, and they want to have giveaways, as they put it, although it's always our money, of course, but they call it giveaways before just before the election. So what he's been promising is tax cuts before the election, but that isn't going to be for some time, maybe 2024. And it's likely, as the Office for Budget Responsibility said, that the UK economy will not pull itself out of this energy shock until 2024. And I would remind everybody all the way around the world watching this is exactly the same wherever you are. It's not just about the UK. We are isolated, we're post-Brexit and all the rest of it, but these aren't concerns, these aren't global concerns. The global concerns are the increases in energy. The hope is that brains will start to think about where they can get their energy now Russia has cut itself out of the picture. Again, they're asking for ruble payments and so on, and large energy importers are looking at their contracts to see whether this is possible or not, because the contract will have been written in euros and dollars, and whether that can be changed at this late time, don't know. Some people are saying, well, if one party of an agreement says I'm not going to do it, then the other party's got to take notice. Well, we'll see about that. But I suspect that these are early days for this crisis, but the crisis will continue for quite a few years.
Yesterday, we were talking about how far Rishi Sunak will go in his spring statement. But as at this morning, we've seen that that statement has not given much hope. Instead, it has caused a lot of despair. Some people have described it as the economics of a madhouse. Some people say it's a big swindle, with inflation projected by the OBR to hit about 7.4% on the average for the better part of the year, and up to about 8.7% towards the end of the year. But I wanted to draw your attention to the editorial in the Scotsman today. The Scotsman, after expressing the general disappointment with the little effort that the same man who introduced the furlough scheme is now taking England, UK into an age of austerity. They were saying that there is a connection in that editorial between what is going on in the UK and the Brexit ideology. And in the conclusion of that editorial, the Scotsman was suggesting that maybe the solution is to allow more migrants from Europe to come into the United Kingdom, even if it is not possible to go back to the European Union. I couldn't figure out the connection. Maybe you have an idea of what the Scotsman is trying to say in that editorial. And then as for Russia, how does Russia hope to execute this? And is this really, a significant switch in the payment system beyond, Putin, President Putin saying, oh, we have no trust in the euro and the dollar. How is this in terms of response to Western sanctions, particularly now that the allies are still saying more sanctions will come?
Okay, let's do Russia first. So you've got a pile of rubles on one side of your desk, and you've got a pile of dollars on the other side of your desk. Which do you want most of all? You don't have to answer the question. You know what the answer is. That's the difference between the two. So this is trying to inject some money into the ruble itself, some kind of value into the ruble itself, which has fallen 85%. Will it work? Will it actually? Do you really think that the ruble will replace the euro and the dollar as vehicular currencies for payments around the world? I leave that question open. That's what this is asking right now. If what you're saying is that you feel as though somehow this is going to reform the payment system, it may do, it may not, but that really is the question. In other words, would you put your trust in a ruble rather than a dollar or a euro? Simple as that. So you can answer that question. As far as the Scotsman's concerned, I've got two things to say about that. First of all, I did say yesterday that I expected very little from the spring statement, and we got very little. That's pretty obvious. I think most people have got that, and it doesn't take necessarily an editorial in the Scotsman to do that. As far as Scotland's concerned, part of the Scotsman is saying that they would like to split from the UK. They would like to go their own way. I would say, given that the way that energy costs are at the moment and the extraction costs from UK oil and whatever else is the Scots decide to take from the UK economy, good luck with that. As far as their observation is concerned, yes, absolutely right. My observation about it all, at my editorial this morning, would have been, this is not just about the UK government, this is about governments all the way around the world. How do they adapt to a crisis that they have no idea what size it's going to be, and at the same time protect their political position? That's what politicians do. What he did yesterday, as I said, was he prepared himself for an election in 2024. That's all. No real help at all.
Yes, and I think the jury is out on that spring statement, and the verdict is clear across the board, no real help at all, like you said. And I think it is gratifying, sorry, these are comments, not questions. I find it really quite gratifying that the Prime Minister has said that P&O ferries appear to have broken some laws and they'll be taking action, that's the government, and encouraging the employees who were so woefully treated to also take action. And there could be fines running into millions of pounds. Very good news. Thank you so much.
Well, just remember that what the important thing in everything you've said there is absolutely right. The subjunctive is the most important part of it. It could resolve itself. There could be payments of £1 million. It looks like there's something gone wrong, as the Prime Minister said. This is political speak. I suspect that very little will happen. I suspect that P&O is probably going to, if there are any targets, if anybody's going to shoot down P&O, it'll be business and it'll be the consumer. The consumer saying, no, we will not go on these ferries because we disagree with what they've done, and the insurance market saying we will not insure these ships unless they're crewed by seamen and seawomen who know what they're doing. That's where the real leverage is going to be, not the subjunctive of it. There might be payments, there might not be payments. That's down to the courts, and that's a long way ahead, as is government action. The fact of the matter is, if business decides to take the battle to P&O, then P&O will have to fight back. Simple as that.
I hope they do. Thank you, Mr. Wilson.